We were talking yesterday about alchemy and how alchemy is one of the things that we see evidence of every day in everything that we do, but we don't always consider it as that because we get confused. Um, we get confused as to why people are in our lives, or why they're such fucking morons, or whatever, why certain situations happen, all of those sorts of things. And not just sort of asking the question, why are these things, but also, if we're past the why, a facet of why is also, well, what do I do about it? Even when you do know why, the clarity isn't always clear if you are purely looking at things from a personality, circumstance kind of point of view. You know, someone's a fuckstick, you go, well, you're a fuckstick. So what do I do? You know, I've got the why you're like this because you're an idiot, but what do I do about it? It's the undercurrent stuff, you know. And so, regardless, in our day-to-day lives, we encounter people and places and things and all of those sorts of things that, if we take them purely on face value as the people, places and things that we see, there may be a bit of mystery around that, because we might then feel deeper into that and go, well, what are you doing in my life? Why are you here? What is the purpose of this? And that is starting to head into the territory of alchemical understandings, because alchemy is are the processes, I guess, that work underneath it, the functions of things, the way things work, not just in how they appear to us. And when you can relate that to about a billion things, why someone might be in your life, and you will look at a person and say, yep, I get your personality, I can see what you are contributing and so forth. But alchemy is much deeper than that. And if we have any kind of understanding or ability to understand that at all, mostly we understand it in hindsight, usually with a fair bit of hindsight and time, when we have a real perspective as to why someone was in our life at the time that they were, and in the fullest extent of the impacts that they made upon us. We sometimes know that to a degree at the time while they are in our life, but normally alchemy is a very tricky monster to be aware of and observe in real time, because it's like the ocean beneath us. We can feel movement, but really it is unfathomably large. And we find ourselves in the results of having had a course change, or just a tide change or something, but it's not often that we fully fathom, let alone can work with or understand or control in the live moment. And so we were talking about this just in terms of people in our own life and decisions that need to be made also at the moment. And I guess I used an example that's probably worth understanding, and I've mentioned this before, but this is a good example of alchemy because it applies to all of us at this stage, and it's around, I guess, what we have in common. And the one thing that we have in common at the moment is that we're all moving into a significant new phase and next phase, as different from the phase we have been in, whatever that means for you. And based on our uniqueness and individuality and so forth and so on, we are manifesting that experience according to our lives. Some of us are contemplating leaving people behind. Some of us are contemplating the great unknown of the future. Some of us are contemplating identity issues and so forth. We all have our little tailored versions of where we are at right now in terms of a commonality in what we are doing, which doesn't preclude any of the uniqueness of our life or any of that other shit. The alchemy part of that is what service or what function that is performing within our own being. But what we get wrapped up in is, why is this person in my life now? Am I going to have to leave them? Who is coming? Physically having to move? All of the stuff that kind of comes up. It's much deeper than that. but we get very distracted in the manifestations or the expressions of the alchemical processes that are going on much deeper right now, because they're much harder to get a conscious handle on. What we can get a conscious handle on is, right now I'm fucking having a great time fucking this person, but I've got this massive thing in front of my life and this is my dilemma. Or our connection to our children or our families or whatever, and it is what it is, it's been what it's been, and now I have this new phase, and what do I do? All of those things, that's what we're really wrapped up in the human kind of experience and dilemma of it. And if we want to see it as a dilemma, then we can choose to tackle it as a dilemma and as a problem to be solved and so forth, and we can take it on that way if we want to. I guess the idea of alchemical awareness is just to lend a wider lens to everything, to what is happening regardless. Because it is just another way of viewing things. It's not like something that flits in and out or is there when you catch it. Like, it is the underlying essence of what is happening, not just what you see is happening. And so the additional lens, as often as you can maintain that kind of lens, will continue to maintain some perspective over shit that just fundamentally doesn't seem to make sense, or does make sense, but it still doesn't really give you a clear path forward because you're trying to work it out. Another example that I'll just give regarding alchemy is again something I've sort of mentioned briefly in the past, but we've seen this. We've seen this in our own group, in the wider Aeon Soul group, in our inner circle, all of these things, and it's around the idea of the X factor. So you would understand this concept of an X factor. It's like out of 10, you know, there are 9 whites and 1 black, and there are many ways to see that. The 9 whites might go, fucking Blackie, what is your problem? You are not same, and so forth. And Blackie goes, no, I'm not, haha. And on a personality level, you might see that as conflict. You might see that as a power imbalance. You might see Blackie as a troublemaker. You usually do when you're one of the 9 whiteys. All of that sort of thing. And so we get into the personality jostle and drama and bullshit of that. But what we need to remember is that on every level of life, including the cells in your body, to a cell group, soul group, to larger, as above, so below, the X factor is a fundamental aspect of a creature, of life itself, because the X factor is what keeps things dynamic. If all 10 things are all the same, nothing moves. It is in a state of stasis, and it is the X factor that maintains the dynamic nature of life, because there is always room for one of the 9 or more of the 9 to do something different other than what they are doing. And so we don't just need it, like you don't have to need it, it just is. And that is a part of every aspect of our life. It is the question mark in the corner that as soon as you look at it, it just darts off to the side, outside of your peripheral vision. And you might tackle the edges of it, or you might tackle one question mark. But I assure you, the question mark is a fundamental factor of life and a facet of life. You can't really eliminate it. It is meant to be there because it creates dynamism, dynamo, dynamic movement and momentum and so forth and so on. For the 9 whiteys who might want to have some consistency and so forth and so on, we end up having kind of problems with Blackie. And an example, a very practical example of that, is only in the last recent months, where we have encountered people clearly within soul space, our soul space, by virtue of them even being a feature. You know that they are working on soul level, but they're fucking troublemakers, you know? Those people that just cause dissent, cause trouble there. They're there for shenanigans. They poke people, they push people around, they try to or could potentially break shit up and break shit down. It's that X factor, it's that one thing that just messes with everything else if everything else doesn't understand what that one thing's function is. So let's look at the Maria Whites, the Laurel Loves, the people like that. Maria White, Laurel Love, and people like that are well and truly in soul space and hold valid places as much as the rest of us. Just because you don't like them, or just because their personalities are a bit retarded or whatever, has nothing to do with the fact of their validity. They, as people, you will see them as they are, and we all probably have a person like that in our life. And then again, macro level as above, we have a version of that in our collective life, and so forth. It will never go anywhere. You might think that they are just dissenters, and at some point we are going to rise above the dissenters, and that may be true, but dissenters are just an expression of the X factor. The X factor is a fundamental component and will continue to express itself in other ways. Let's just say we manage to, this is even the wrong way to say it, manage to eliminate and clear our field of the dissenters because we go, no, we don't really need dissenters right now, and we could do that. And then at some point, probably still underlying our movements of removing dissenters, we now discover that we have internal dissension in our hearts, whatever. That really the element of dissension, the element of uncertainty, trouble, fear, anxiety, whatever, hasn't fucking gone anywhere. And it won't. And let's just say we eliminate that. Let's just say we eliminate dissenters, we eliminate internal dissent, all of those sorts of things. Trust me, some other fucking weird thing will happen, okay? It's meant to be like that, because that is the nature of alchemy. You can't really take it personally. It is fundamentally moving to keep things moving. It helps to understand some of this stuff, as I said, because it diffuses some of the personal charge around the way we see alchemy expressing itself, so we don't take it so fucking personally. And that we can understand the nature and function of the process of alchemical processes. And when you see it like that, again, you're not so kind of charged and triggered by the expressions of that. To a degree, you can almost anticipate certain elements to be present in any given scenario, and you're just going to approach it better. Because rather than just rejecting it on the spot or rejecting an illusion of it, you will accept it purely for what it is and what its function and nature is, and then you have capacity to work with it. As we did with the Laurel Loves, Maria Whites, and that example. What that energy's presence did for us, what it could have done, was start picking at our fabric and having a go, and for the first few seconds it did that. But after that, what did the 9 lights do with the 1 light? It kind of mobilized us. It kind of solidified us. We responded alchemically as well, because of the nature of our cell. If our cell was not as strong, then it would have had a different impact. But I mean, within the cell there is the alchemy, but there is also the conscious beings. It's multi-level, whatever level you want to see it at. Go away, mosquito. I'm quite sure this is all making a whole lot of sense. But anyway, this is what we were talking about yesterday. And we are all in this process right now of experiencing commonalities in alchemical process. Completely different in the way it is expressing itself uniquely in our lives. But that is not the point, and that is kind of the illusion to not fall under. The fact that all 7 of us are being tested uniquely before our next phase. The test commonality being, are you sure? Are you sure you're ready for the next phase? Let me just tempt you with something that's going to tug at your heartstrings, your vagina, your wallet, your whatever. It's the same. It's just the X factor working itself into our space. And the point is to feel our processes and the functions of all of these things under that, so we don't take it so personally, so we can maintain a bit of a calm mind, and we can continue to work as group with it as well, and not just sink back into our individual lives, because alchemy is also part of the unification. It is our fundamental commonality from a soul platform and from a soul template space. And I don't know, this was the gist of it. You could pretty much apply this shit to anything, and that is the point. To see the alchemical processes and functionings and movements under things, the undercurrents under things, to recognise the ocean in which people, places and things are only waves. And to say that you understand the movements of the tides in the oceans by observing a couple of cool waves, well, we know that that is not the case. A wave is not a complete indication of the ocean in its entirety. This is all stuff that I suspect we will, and I'm looking forward to working on together, you know. But anyway, upon our lovely sister Neve's request, this is what we were banging on about yesterday. And there you go. And that is all I have. Love you guys. Talk to you later.